this computer
Hello, everyone.
volumes.
Welcome back to Gospel Allegiance, Chapter 4. Um, yeah. So, how you guys liking this so far? We're about a third of the way through the book.
Excellent, actually.
A
Good, good.
rhetorical question. Are you serious?
Yeah. This is a serious
I'm
question.
enjoying it. I
Yeah,
really, you know that.
I'm. Yeah, I'm glad y'all are enjoying it. I'm glad we're all learning stuff and getting out of it. So let's go ahead and get right into it. If this cooperates, there we go. All right. So one of the big so what he goes and focuses on this big portion is what the big message is for looking at a broad overview, building off of where we left off last time with what is the gospel trademark per se, and like what actually it is. And Bates sums that up really nicely. But how he defines it is that the gospel, and I put the trademarks in for its officiality, is the arrival of the kingdom of God with Jesus as its monarch. But it is not the Romans road. It is not the Sole. And but what's interesting is that the gospel strangely does not include human sin, God's standard of righteousness, the cross, death for sins, the second advent, heaven or going there. And my question for you guys to think to kick off our talk tonight is how much has the Western church put these forth as the gospel trademark or part of it?
Okay, say that again.
Okay. All these things of human sin, God's standard of right, like all the stuff on the left. How much have you seen in your Christian experience of being where the Western church puts these forth as as the gospel or part of it?
All of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer. All of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because especially because you know what really focuses on this, on a lot of this, is your penal substitution camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the bedrock of Protestantism and Western Christianity, especially with the original sin anthropology, that Jesus has to address that in their system. And so the gospel becomes centered around how do we deal with human sin
Yeah.
instead of, how do we, become one with God, which is
Yeah.
which is sort of the end game, which is the end game of Eastern Christianity.
To me, it's more and more feeling like it's all about us instead of being all about him.
No, it's all about the sin.
Yeah,
That's
but
the
that's
most
what I mean. It's all
important
about
thing is the
us.
sin.
Yeah.
All the time. Did you know about sin?
hmm
Here, I see there's some sin. Let me add some sin to that. Would you like sin with a side of sin? Would you like some sin on your sin? You know, it is
Can I
it's
have an extra helping of sin?
yeah, because the problem is that we load all that stuff in there to get converts in the door, but then again, do we also really know what we're doing?
Yeah.
Which Bates comes in with this book and he tries to put something forth like that to give us a real concrete thing of the gospel. But the thing is, if human sin, God's standard of righteousness, the cross, death for sins, the second advent, heaven and or going there is not the point of our faith, where is it? And it's in Jesus is the King.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, there is a place to address all of those things on the left.
Yes.
Of course, there is a place to address those because they do answer the questions as the systematic or how we construct our cosmology goes. But when we're giving the gospel to someone, this it doesn't involve these,
Yeah.
which is so weird because I did because when I was a fundamentalist King James only Baptist and I'd go door to door Romans Road was what we would tell people. We would tell everybody about this.
Mm-hmm.
Ringing doorbells like Mormons.
Mm.
Yeah, but I feel they're friendlier than us. Um, but yeah, that's what we would go out and tell people. And then for Bates to tell, and then for Bates to just come in and say, well, oh, well, that's not the gospel. Okay, well, now you've piqued my interest. Do tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because part of it I fear is where, like I talked about, how capitalist brain, how we focus on this to get converts through the door like a sales pitch. And the thing is that the gospel is not a sales pitch. We shouldn't treat it like that. The gospel is a life-changing oath of allegiance to the cosmic king of the universe, which I think is a much cooler sell than cosmic child abuse.
Yes.
And all the the world jokes at that because it doesn't make sense to them. Like, even you look at how the system is constructed, it just doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is Jesus is the cosmic king.
Right.
And the thing is, we even see that motif in antiquity with Julius Caesar ascending to the heavens as a god.
Yep.
The same principle. Oh, I have to click to move it. Okay. There you go. All right. So now Bates is going to go into discussing what faith and belief are and it how it kind of skews our idea of what pistis means in the Greek and how it's a cog. So anyway, faith and believing, or belief, our favorite English translation of pistis from Wycliffe through the 1611 King James Bible, which is a very long tradition because Wycliffe was writing in the late 14th century to 1611. That's almost 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a long time. Now, we feel that these are unimpeachable, but these are actually derived from Latin fetus, not Greek pistis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, so one other place we run into this is in Romans 5:12, where is it, in whom all have sinned, or because that all have sinned. So going back to the Greek on this is really important. So Bates is trying to draw us to the Greek, how the Greek understanding of the passage goes.
Yeah, doesn't that kind of take us down the road of this is another example of the Latinized church institution, even if it's Reformation, is kind of clunking along with, hey, we're here to define everything. And why do you need that early church stuff? Because by golly, we've got our traditions that are old, and we're going to sing Fiddler on the Roof tradition until we're sick of hearing it.
You talk to people like Trent Horn and like all like the Catholic apologetics and stuff, and even guys like James White, is that they hang their hat on the early church because all these different groups are vying on being we're correct, we're the original.
Yeah.
And then the Messianic Jews come along.
Uh,
And then the Mormons come along. And the Jehovah's Witnesses come along. And they all have a dog in the fight. But as you point out, because here, especially in the West, is that we owe the Latin tradition pretty much all of where we are at for Christianity right now.
right.
Because with the church being in, well, because like we just did our study on Cyprian, is that he was a Latin speaker.
Yep.
Carthage is a Latin speaking town, or at least there were Latin people there. And then, Alexandria, of course, they spoke Latin because they spoke every language. They were very cosmopolitan.
Right.
Then, of course, they all answered to Rome, the seat of government. And of course, the church reflecting what's going on in the Roman Empire. So Rome claims all this authority for itself,
Yeah.
you know. But even the Reformation is coming out of the Latin tradition because it's from the Roman Catholic Church the Reformation sprung.
Right.
So
So they
again,
can't, what you're really saying is they can't, they can't help their own DNA.
no, they can't. But they have given us a huge gift on that because we have all this tradition and theological questions and literature and writings and thoughts to work from,
Mm-hmm.
to inform the Christian. So, like when Martin Luther says that, the just shall live by faith, he's reading that in Latin. When Thomas
Yeah.
Aquinas is writing, he's writing that in Latin.
Right.
Um, and because we are in the West, which was the Latin speaking end of the world, we have that tradition.
We
Now the
do.
Greek tradition is different, and you just go enter an Eastern Orthodox church and just trust your eyes.
Right.
Yeah, there's a huge there are huge stark differences in theology, in worldviews, in language, just from the Latin and the Greek worlds being different.
Right.
But of course,
Yeah.
we owe Jerome for giving us the Septuagint back. We owe you know, Wycliffe for his first English Bible. I mean, we owe so much to the heritage, from the Latin Church. But what Bates is drawing our attention to bring this back around is that we need to look at Greek pistis, not Latin fidus.
Right.
Yeah. So the idea is that Greek pistis, it can cognate to English faith and believing, but these words have a different definition in the first century context. And he even talks about how words are now different from even medieval, Reformation, and modern meanings
Mm-hmm.
because it just changes over time.
Yes.
Like one favorite thing I found was the word hypocrite. Is that what does that mean? Oh, you say one thing and do something else or the opposite. Is that, well, no, actually. You go back to I think it's Webster. Well, actually, even from Webster's, um, it means, to put up a false pretense, right? But you go back into Greek, and it's actually what you call an actor, because a hypocrite is someone who puts a mask on their face.
Hmm.
So when Jesus is talking to the Pharisees, he's not, he's like, you guys are actors. You act all is that you act all pious and everything, but you are deficient in the commandments and you're being impious.
So
And here's the laundry list.
would um a different word, I hate to say more appropriate, but a different word be more fitting, which is pretender as opposed to actor?
Yeah, let me see if I can get a good definition for you here. Because it's in reference to the false faces that the classical actors would wear to
Right.
portray the character and also amplify their voice.
Sure. Ah,
Yeah, Hippocrate, a stage player who wears a mask, and it's derived from hypocrinomai, to decide, speak, or act under falsehood or to pretend masquerade.
got it. So pretender would be headed down the same road.
Right, right. Yeah,
But
and so
how
from
much richer is that with the etymology there? I mean,
uh,
that is a picture, that you can get and understand. It seems like over time, many words just kind of start getting watered down in their meaning. Maybe it's because they're used wider. I'm just guessing. Like you're going down here to the English meaning of faith, and all I could think of was George Michael singing Faith, and it's like, wow, like how did we get, you know, that
Oh yeah.
faith in
Right.
what? Just a feeling of faith. It's interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
sidebar, but yeah.
Yeah,
No.
because this is an example of how language changes over the periods. Because I know because when I track this word from Webster 1828 is that one who feigns to be what he is not, one who is the form of godliness without the power, or who assumes an appearance of piety and virtue when he is destitute of true religion, a dissembler, one who assumes a false appearance. But then in 1913. So one who plays a part, especially one who, for the purpose of winning approbation or favor, puts on a fair outside seeming, one who feigns to be other and better than he is, a false pretender of virtue or piety, or one who simulates virtue or piety. So a hypocrite means a pretender. But in our common language, we throw this word around all the time to where it means, oh, you say one thing and do another.
Mm-hmm.
And then we read that as Jesus is saying that is that, oh, well then, and then that's where all this, don't be a Pharisee nonsense comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Like Justin Peters, or no, not Justin Peters, Jordan Peterson got in trouble with Candace Owens over that, and he just looked like a fool because that's not what a Pharisee is. And it's like, oh, but then we as Americans read that into our rebel paradigm, and then we say that, oh, well, you're a hypocrite, so you're a false authority. I don't have to trust you. I'm a free agent,
Right.
and so yeah, or it's you're masquerading, right?
Yeah.
But you see how it changes over time, just in 2 centuries,
Yeah.
how that happens. Because as you check the dictionaries over the years, you can see how the definition changes over time to where it loses its complete original meaning.
Yeah. So as you say, to circle back to Bates, he's really just stressing how this these words and Greek versus Latin, and then trying to pull us back to the first century, is to say don't don't necessarily trust the words and the definitions that you're using in the 21st century as though they're the same as what was being used either in the first century or anywhere between here and there.
Yeah.
Another one I think of is the way that particularly Calvinists right now use the word sovereignty.
Yeah.
Is like what? You don't mean the same thing, I don't think, when you're
No,
saying
it's sovereignty.
yes.
You have to say it with that lofty, uppity, smug voice they use.
Meticulous, what is it? Meticulous divine determinism is probably what they mean by that, honestly.
Wow.
Hmm. All right. So moving forward, does loyalty, or actually, hold on. Am I in the right spot? Yeah, I'm in the right spot. Okay. Now the big question to ask here is, does loyalty/allegiance convey the meaning of pistis better? This is a fundamental part of Matthew Bates's case to the idea of the gospel of allegiance. Because instead of translating pistis as faith or believing, he proposes that we understand it as loyalty and allegiance. But he says is that pistis is not blind faith. It is embodied and it is outward, right? So think of it not as my personal faith. Notice it's my personal, that's inward language,
Mm-hmm.
That I internalize that, but that it is put on something or someone externally, right? So one sentence I came up with to help communicate an idea like this is that I am making a conscious decision to soundly trust a proposition, right? So that's more or less what faith is. Now the trust/pistis is on the proposition, which is external to me, the one placing the pistis. You guys understand what you guys picking up what I'm throwing
Yeah.
down?
I think so. Yeah.
You know, yeah, because
Yeah.
if I'm being confusing, let me know, because I have
Well,
more examples
no, that's
as we move
fine.
forward.
I think so. To say it back differently, what it does is by making faith the object of faith being loyalty and allegiance, what it does is it means that I can't self-define faith. I can't say, well, faith to me is, and then just go off on a lark and build it any old way it is that I want, because I'm building it, as you say, I'm building it internally, and in my own internal self, I feel my good old American flag waving liberty that I can just make it up any old way I want, and you can't tell me any differently because I get to choose what my faith is. By turning it external, we're removing that capacity.
That's right, Larry. Speak your truth.
Yes.
Speak your truth, girlfriend.
So
Yeah, but the big idea is that when you exercise pistis personally, your pistis is on something. It's not something that I have, it's something that I'm putting on something else.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then he also uses this to tie into a point that faith being the opposite of evidence or reason is wrong. Yeah, and he quotes Richard Dawkins here, talking about how, how Christianity wants you to have a blind faith and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially like unsubstantiated, anti-evidential, and it's his battle with like the fundies,
Yeah.
or just believe it because I say so. And that's not, Dawkins can't do that because he's a rationalist.
Right.
And a lot of this gets put on, epistles of the Hebrews 11:1, which is now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the proof of things not seen. So your average Joe Christian takes that and runs with it and says, I just believe it because, based on faith, not that there's any evidence for it. And it's correct by definition, so I can't check it and you can't convince me otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes the rationalist brain like short circuit infuriatingly, because I know, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it goes back to the rationalist empiricist debate from the Enlightenment.
Sure.
Yeah, but that definition of faith muddies the water for us, and then especially using our 21st century American terminology and a hard rationalist hermeneutic, that's why Richard Dawkins gets so frustrated when he talks to Christians and stuff, because it's just, I believe it just cuz, or
Right.
circular arguments based on faith. And that doesn't work, and that doesn't work for rationalist brain.
Yep.
Emily got me a refill. She's the best wife ever.
oh, I wanted to on that last slide that you had.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm making a conscious decision to soundly trust a proposition. I would also say, if we're understanding this in light of who Jesus is, it's a conscious decision to trust in him as the king and um, you know, the Son of God, the, Son of Man, that it's more than just an idea. He's an actual person.
Yeah.
Which is why you have to be loyal. I mean, that's all wrapped up. And I think, was it the patron? I forget the other word. There's something to do in that culture with having a patron, which is like a kind of a wealthy person that grants favors, and then like the people that come to the patron in the community, they are expected in that culture to like reciprocate, like in Thanksgiving, for what the favors that they get.
Oh yeah.
Mm,
And I think that when I learned that and you combine it with this, it makes so much sense, because it's like we're not saved by works, but there is an expectation that your faith is working. And
Yeah.
it's external to you. Like there should be something that's showing, not just, oh, I get a good feeling about Jesus, like
yeah, if
even
you,
though it's nice to get a good feeling about Jesus, that's not the
Mhm.
basis. And I think that individualist culture, we place a lot of emphasis on that
well, all you
individual.
have to, I think all you have to do is put it in a war footing. It's, uh, in our day and age, probably the greatest example is World War II, and the Nazis versus the Allies, and your loyalty to, because we're all a bunch of ex-allies here. We're downstream from them. Nazis are bad, so we'll go with the good guys. Uh, it's one thing to lip service and mouth, hey, I'm loyal to the Allies, but now I turn around, pick up my Mauser, and I start shooting at my own side. There has to be the substance of loyalty is not behaving in a way that is treasonous. So there are very clear lines, very objective lines that can be drawn. So I think what we're really saying is that by pursuing this is we're removing faith as some kind of subjective, make it up any way you want. Who cares if you're treasonous to the cause? Um, no, you can't be that, because loyalty and allegiance requires not being a traitor.
Mm. Yeah, and I also think of you mentioned Luther. Um, it's funny to me because I think he would definitely agree that it is external, that it's an external trust. Um, but he has, along with the Calvinists, it's effectually given by God. So they've turned faith, and like you said, the soul is, by faith alone, is turned into God gives you the faith. So it's actually not something you can consciously choose or not choose. He has to effectually work that in you. And in Lutheranism, it's through the word and the sacraments. That
Mhm.
that is like faith is almost like this substance that's getting doled out in you. And then Calvinism, of course, they would say you're regenerated before you believe. They've got a lot with the order salutis that's kind of screwy, but excuse me, not the word to use on a recording. But yeah, so this is kind of uh it flips a lot of things from that root that you're talking about, on its head. He's saying something that's, yeah, and from what I'm learning is a lot of that has to do with Augustine, and or however you want to say his name. I don't always pronounce it right, Augustine and Augustine. But in his belief about original sin, and a misinterpretation of one of the scriptures, that was from a Latin translation, honestly. So it becomes this sin becomes this sticky thing that sticks to you, and God has to effectually like move it from you. And it becomes so muddied compared to what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that's almost the opposite of, oh, I get a good feeling about Jesus. no, you can't have a feeling about Jesus. The only that is evil unless God makes you have the good. Like it's just, it can get very circular very quickly. And I've talked too long, so I'm gonna pause mute. You go on, Nicholas.
All right. So in my next slide, we're going to flesh this point out a little more. So to quote from his text, what we externally see points to the invisible certainty associated with God's word and promises. For example, we look outward to see the created universe, which is the evidence for the creative power of God's word. And being trained in apologetics, this strikes me as he's going to the painting because of a painter argument, where the argument for first causes. But the idea is he's trying to say is that, like, well, because hold on, let me slow down. So this ties to natural revelation being sort of the substance of our belief in the power to create. And the power to create is tied to what we read in the text about God. Therefore, it's all connected. Right? Am I confusing anybody?
Uh-huh. Seven.
How Bates explains this is because I remember reading On the Nature of the Gods by Cicero, and Cicero actually walks through natural revelation to show you why he believes in Roman religion. And one fun line he has in there is that, if someone says that there are no gods, I question your sanity, which is one of my favorite quotes from the passage. But the idea is that, but Kiguro appeals entirely to natural revelation to substantiate his religion, and and a lot of experiences when he sees, when there are omens in the College of Augurs, and of course Roman religion was very complicated. But the reason Kiguro trusts the school of augurs, the reason he trusts, the temples, the reason he trusts in his gods, there's a lot of substance to his faith. His faith is on the gods to him. And that's tied to what he sees in the natural world. So there's a parallel here, and I see a parallel there from Kiguro to Bates, sort of drawing a connection there, because our faith has to have substance, like we spoke about in the last slide. It's not just a blind faith. That's not what pistis calls us to. Just saying, oh, I believe it. CNN says that I believe it. Fox News says that I believe it. It's like, no.
Well,
there has to be a substance there, right? Because again, you're just having faith for faith's sake, right? It says here, faith has substance, it's not empty. You don't trust for trusting's sake, but you trust someone or something. That someone or something is the substance of your pistis. For example, do I trust this chair will hold me? It seems sturdy, so I will trust it. Right? And then again, we see the sun rises and sets every day. So tomorrow, I trust the sun will rise at 7:30 a.m. as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that this is where it gets a little abstract here, but the thing is, your faith is the substance of your faith is what you're putting your faith on, is what you choose to trust.
Yes.
It's not a faith that's in something, like they're holding it, like they're holding your faith, like in a box. Mm-hmm. It's that my faith is on the chair, my faith is on the sun. Mm-hmm. And then that ties you, my faith is on the gospel that Jesus is king.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the creation points us to that there's a creator.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that doesn't tell us, about Jesus, but it testifies that there is something more going on.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I just cannot believe in atheism.
Yeah, and even in a pastoral sense, someone will, say something off the cuff like, well, just have faith. When what would actually be comforting to the person is look at Jesus, and tell, reassuring about the promises of God and who Jesus is and all of that.
Well, yeah,
The object of the faith, not faith in your faith.
right.
As if
Yeah.
you can conjure it up or something. Just
yeah.
faith
And
in what?
yeah. And even in our culture, we have a lot of these meaningless platitudes that we just tell each other
Yeah,
that doesn't help anything.
great.
Or, it's just something nice to say to not seem rude, but there's no substance. There's no substance to it. It's just a nice thing.
Well, we're
We just
also,
gotta have faith. And then they put it in calligraphy on a t-shirt so the housewives buy them. It's silliness. It's not anything of substance, right?
yeah. Well, and this, again, this is why, the game changers for me over the last 2.5 years has been realizing the large framework of God versus the gods, that there is a war that is going on, and that there's a loyalty test that is involved in that war. And I don't get to, if I remove that, if I completely take that away, the only thing that I'm left with is maybe or maybe not there is a God. If I want to believe in if there's a clock, then there has to be a clockmaker, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of get to choose that for myself. And then if I do actually land on, oh, yeah, there's a clockmaker, well, then I get to define what this ethereal, platitudinous faith looks like on my own. You can't tell me, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as I frame the thing as there is God, He makes creation, He creates free will beings, there's angelic beings, there's human beings, and oh, by the way, um, uh, some of those angelic beings rebel and turn it into a contested space. It now becomes a war. Now there's a war, and when it comes to war, you're either you can't be loyal to both sides. You have to pick, and if you refuse to pick, you're picking. So you cannot be passive, and you can't become Switzerland in the middle of this. There is no Switzerland in God versus the gods. And what that does for me is it changes it, or it has completely altered the dynamic of my life. My life is no longer Larry gets to pick whatever he wants to. And if he wants to, ignore it all and watch TV, that's what he's going to do. I don't get to do that anymore. The passive nature of it is gone. I now must choose in an active way what I'm going to do, what I'm going to believe, whose side am I going to be on, and what does that mean to my daily thoughts, words, and actions? How am I going to deal with that? And for me, that has been it is that contextualization that has removed all of these subjective, what I now look at as being just subjective nonsense. It's all birthed out of not knowing the story.
Yeah. Cool, cool. All right. So Bates continues here. It says that when we see it, our faith in God's word is confirmed. Seeing the physical evidence leads towards the judgment that God's creative word is indeed powerful. Despite cultural narratives that paint faith as contrary to evidence, in Hebrews faith actually involves following evidence in order to confirm God's powerful word. Biblical faith is not anti-evidential.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, pistis, not faith, right? So now he gets into now he's starting to get into the nitty gritty of what substantiates his case, right? So he says pistis can mean allegiance. Can, meaning it's able to mean allegiance. But pistis does not usually mean allegiance. How words mean things matter to the discussion. So it sounds a little flimsy to begin with, but just wait, let him speak. Now this is kind of a direct parallel to Dr. Heiser saying that Nakash can mean shining one, and then he just takes it and runs with that as far as he can. So Bates is going to do sort of the same thing. When we look at pistis in a New Testament dictionary, we do not see that it means to believe in something, rather that is connected to an inherent quality about someone or something that evokes trust in another, which goes to faithfulness, reliability, fidelity, commitment. Right. But notice that word fidelity, what's the root of that?
Fidelis.
Yep, fidelis fetus, which we just got out of. Comparing it to pistis, but he ties it back around. But the idea is the word I like about the word I like to use for this is trusty.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more about and I kind of take issue personally with the word allegiance because it seems more like he wants to say that it's like a loyalty or a trustworthiness, but I don't know. Maybe that's my Latin fetus brain going off. I'm committed to that, but let's just see how it plays out. So he starts off with Titus 2:10, that slaves should show pistis to their masters. So it doesn't make sense that pistis is faith or believing their masters, but the idea is that they should show faithfulness to their masters and not run away or be rude or and know their place. Where that is. So here's an opportunity where faithfulness is good here. Now, if that was triggering, remember, Paul is living in the Roman Empire where slavery was an everyday thing, like it's been throughout the entirety of human history.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, you could almost still keep it in the 21st century if you frame it as I made an agreement with the company that I work for that in order to get my paycheck, I need to show up Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and I don't leave work until 5 p.m. And so faith as a slave or a servant to my master is also might be able to go as far as employee employer, maybe, but certainly not in the first century view of it. First century view is a much different environment.
Yeah, because showing faithfulness to your masters is that if you ever read pro-slavery sermons from the Civil War period,
Yeah.
they go into stuff like this.
Yes.
Which is so funny because you'd never think that there'd be pro-slavery sermons. But I when I was in college, I had to order a microfiche to get a copy of a record that otherwise didn't exist. So I put it through the system and I roll it. I have to figure out how to work the thing. And on that same reel, because it's a huge collection of text, on that same reel is this whole pamphlet full of pro-slavery sermons.
Wow.
from the antebellum period. It's like that's just
Right.
so funny that that's on there.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I was just on there for a special play about the Barbary pirates. Some guy wrote over winter when he was bored. And it's like, oh well, pro-slavery sermons are here. It's like, oh my goodness. But
Right.
anyway, the idea is pistis. Slaves should be faithful to their masters. No. And then another example from the Gospels. Excuse me. Matthew 23:23 shows Jesus with the Pharisees, telling them that they have neglected justice, mercy, and pistis. This means that they lack faithfulness to Torah, not that they have abandoned their religion, which is their belief or faith in God. Is that yeah, because how we normally read that is they have neglected justice, mercy, and faith or belief. But the idea is that if their faithfulness to Torah is in question, because this is the talk that Jesus gives them about leaving stuff out of the law that they follow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right here, pistis would mean loyalty or faithfulness
Mm-hmm.
right here. And so yeah. Now in Thessalonians, he goes on where Paul is boasting about your steadfastness and pistis in all the persecution and trials you're enduring. Now, being steadfast and pistis are linked, where steadfast faithfulness, I think, makes a better translation. But you still see how pistis is connected here to faithfulness, loyalty, allegiance, Czech thesaurus,
Mm-hmm.
all the related words. And this gets important really fast. So in 2 Thessalonians 1 through 8, vengeance on those who do not know God and upon those who do not obey pistis, the gospel. We normally translate that as obey. But it says here, pistis works here better as allegiance or loyalty. Those who are disloyal to the gospel. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, maintaining pistis, even through trials, is tied to saving obedience to the gospel. This is his connection. What saves is not just faith, but also that faith with loyalty to Jesus. That's gospel allegiance.
Mm.
All right. So he also cites Acts 16:31 with the Philippian jailer, where faithfulness, the faithfulness definition of pistis is tied to the gospel, to a deliverance of the gospel, right? First
Mm-hmm.
Thessalonians 2:5, Colossians 2:6 through 7 are places where pistis is better translated as loyalty or allegiance. Excuse me. Now, in other works of literature, we see stuff like this too. In Antiquities of the Jews, Book 12, passage 147, I believe, is that the king or Antiochus also testifies in writing to our piety and pistis when he learned of the revolts in Phrygia and Lydia. So the deal with pistis is that it's about loyalty and allegiance, is that the Jews maintained their loyalty to Antiochus while the revolts were going on.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly pistis in that situation would better be allegiance or loyalty, not faith or belief or trustworthiness, right?
Right.
Trustworthiness is another good one. In First Maccabees 10:26 through 27, it says here, and he sent to them according to these words, King Demetrius to the nation of the Jews greeting. For as much as you have kept your covenants with us and continued in our friendship and have not joined yourselves to our enemies, we have heard hereof and are glad. And now continue you still to keep pistis with us, and we will recompense you good things in return for your dealings with us. Faith could be one of this, where if they're both Yahwists, but that may not be the case.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, having loyalty to their peace agreement here makes more sense of the translation.
Mm-hmm.
Other opportunities where this pops up. Jesus to the church of Pergamum, you did not deny your pistis, faithfulness to me, your loyalty to me, right? How do we get
Right.
that we get that with the passions of the martyrs and such. Revelation 12, here is the preservation of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God in the pistis of Jesus. And Bates wants us to sit and focus really hard on what the context of the passage connects pistis to, like steadfastness and commandment keeping, and you will see it lines up with the proposed royal gospel of allegiance to Jesus the King. So he's bringing this full circle around. So Bates is saying is that pistis normally does not, pistis normally means faith or belief. But in some instances, it could mean trustworthiness, loyalty, allegiance. And when we read the context and we see where that word is used and what it's tied to, that's where the point of the gospel is the pistis to Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
which is that loyalty. Because especially in passages where pistis and gospel are used together, that's what he wants to shine a light on and say, see, it's the gospel of allegiance here, the gospel of pistis,
Mm-hmm.
right? To Jesus the King. So this is the bedrock of his allegiance model that he gives here. And I think that about does it. Any questions, thoughts, or ideas?
Mm. Mm-mm. Pretty pretty well explained.
Yeah. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you, but I'm also like popping around in Logos. And I'm not sure if I say that right. I know people say Logos. I don't know. I'm not so good with pronunciation sometimes. But anyway, I am in a book called Honor, Patronage, Kinship, and Purity.
Yeah.
Do you know that one?
I heard of it. I have yet to read it, but it comes highly recommended.
David De Silva.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is talking all about this patronage client relationship and honor and shame culture and kinship, and it is I need to just sit down with this and just soak in it because it's tracking right along with what you're saying. Even the word grace has a way deeper meaning than we give it. So I would just highly recommend that as a read. And I might copy some things into the group later.
Mm.
Yeah, please do. Because especially the word charis or grace or gift, I
Yes.
don't think we properly understand what that means at all.
Yes. Yes. So it has talked about, and I'm just recalling the things I've heard from him as well as it is this like reciprocal relationship. It's almost like a dance between the patron and the client,
Yeah.
where the patron gives out of his own goodness, but then there is an expectation of loyalty and returning that favor, even to the point of if something that the patron was in disgrace in some way or in need, like they would even like go to war for that patron.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
there is the idea of you can have more than one patron, and this is where it breaks, but you can have more than one patron, but you could not have patrons that were at war with each other. That would be disloyal to your patron because you would be showing like a lack of fidelity in the
Yeah.
Mm.
relationship. And so that gets very interesting, especially if all of that heaviness is attached to those words and those cultures. And then we're bringing our late English modern watered down changed meanings of words even in the definition. So it becomes really clear to me how you could easily skew you know, is, what that means, especially if you're somebody that is just like the word of God alone, and you're not trying to
Yeah.
understand Bible backgrounds or any of that, the cultural stuff,
What
because
was it?
just
What was
so
the name of the
key.
book again?
Honor, patronage, kinship, and purity, unlocking New Testament culture.
And the
And
author?
David De Silva. I'm gonna copy it in there for you.
Oh, good.
Um, just so you can swipe it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I took a class in college on the history of Republican Rome, and
Mhm.
my professor went and talked to us about the patron client system, and he said it worked just like the mafia,
Really?
which it was. It
Yeah.
functioned just like a mafia, and the thing is that, well, if Jesus is your patron, what does that mean? So this ties back into what does it mean that Jesus is king, right?
Yeah.
And also, and if there's a little more help about patronage, here's an old British drinking song that we get the Star Spangled Banner tune from. No lie. It says, to Anacreon in heaven, where he sat in full glee, a few sons of harmony sent a petition that he their inspirer and patron would be, when his answer arrived from the jolly old Grecian. I'll lend you my name and inspire you to boot, and besides I'll instruct you like me to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine. So yeah, so Anacreon is the patron of these Sons of Harmony, where he educates them and he sponsors them to perform music.
But then he has it's there's some quid pro quos involved.
Yeah. Well, again, it's that, hey, would you, well, essentially, hey, we'd like to create a thing. Would you like to sponsor us to create said thing, and we'll put your name on it,
Yeah.
and we will use this to honor you. And
Right.
he says, yeah, go do it. So
Right.
yeah, I'll and here and choose me as your patron, and I'll also do this extra for you. So he's a very generous patron. Because also in the like in the ancient world, it's that we like how art was created is that you needed a patron to sponsor the artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the artist doesn't work. He's not in the field, he's not in the factory. He has his full-time job is to produce art for this patron who has money to burn on art, right?
Right.
So yeah, so the artist will produce, to the taste of the patron, and the patron will sort of sponsor him as he goes.
AKA Amadeus.
Yep. Just like that. Yeah. But yeah, but I'm really glad you bring that up with patronage and like the whole idea of the exchange. It's funny because like neo-pagans today, there's one neo-pagan on YouTube named Ali Akai who talks about she's a Hellenic polytheist, and she talks about the Charis exchange, and like the gods being a patron to the worshiper in a way through the exchange of offerings and prayers and such. And so there's that interesting dimension to it too, because a lot of these neo-pagans are trying to like go back to the sources and reconstruct what these religions were before
Wow.
Christianity. But there's a lot of stuff about the ancient world they're dredging up too to try to understand and frame it.
What an
So
opportunity for an apologetic to them.
yeah,
You've got the wrong patron.
Yeah.
You know?
well, yeah,
Wow.
but I mean, it's kind of hard to make a patron out of the god of Platonism at the
Yeah.
same time. Um, but like especially like you see it with the mystery cults that Christianity rose up around. It's that, well, Dionysus was the patron of the Bacchists, and You have Lady Isis, who was the patroness of the cult of Isis, and Demeter of Eleusis, and on the list goes. And that patronage is tied to your allegiance.
Hmm.
So making Jesus your patron, what's the deal there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, yes, the gift is being freely offered. There's nothing you can do to earn the offer, but once you accept the offer, there are responsibilities and obligations to meet.
Yes.
I got something in my ear.
And it's not about it's in response to the patron's faithfulness, not um to earn his favor, because there's an inherent understanding that the patron is above you to begin with.
Right.
And you need
Yeah.
something from him because you cannot provide it on your own. So there's that aspect as well.
Yeah, but one thing that's really important to consider is that it's not, this, sort of, I give some, it's not the input output
No.
deal. No, it's about building a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where capitalist brain gets us in trouble trying to understand these things. Is that when, like, yeah, so the idea of, when you do offerings or you do liturgy or you're, participating in practical religion, the reason you do that is to build a relationship with the deity. It's not because, it's not God, God's not a gumball machine.
Yeah.
He's not a gumball machine. He's like, because call me terrible, but it's that, when I sit in church and stuff and like evangelical churches, like, things is that it's just, like a one-way directional prayer is that, like we're just so needy. Like we're really needy people, is that we can't just call Jesus to say hi or something. It's like, hey, you're great. Thanks for another great day. I mean, it's just, oh God, can you please do X? Oh, can I please have this? Oh, is that like, oh my goodness, you're needy.
We are.
But we're detached from that context of that theological point of the charis exchange of this patronage.
Mm-hmm.
Because what it comes down to in our culture is that I give Jesus my faith, therefore he's supposed to give me in return eternal life and pardon of sins. Right? Well, if you remember, well, if you recall from our first slide tonight, is that, well, none of those things are part of the gospel you're supposed to believe to show loyalty to Jesus. So why are you making it about something that's not? When it's that Jesus is the cosmic king who rules and reigns from heaven and orders the universe by his hand and rules by his nod, is that, there's, you're ignorant of that part of it.
Yeah.
And our seminaries and our pastors don't do that.
It's ironic because of the Calvinist sovereignty. It's like they want that to be the control. It's the idea is control. But they've lost the idea of the kingship and the relation. I mean, like I'm not saying Calvinists don't have a relationship, but they're
Well, not even they know if they do.
yeah, you can't be sure of your status because you might be, you might fall away later, but it depends on, there's a lot of nuance within what Calvinists believe because it's to be completely consistent with it becomes crazy making. And so I think a lot of people believe parts of it and they don't know what all the implications are of it.
That's why Calvinists are the most autistic theologians you will ever find.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I have your printouts of what you I took screenshots of your slides to hang up what is the gospel trademark and what you got out of the Book of Acts. And I want to do my own, deep dive into that, but I have it hanging up for now just to kind of meditate on. There's enough in there, I think, where you can get and grasp some of the things that churches emphasize, but it's like how much they emphasize it to the exclusion of all else. And I think just a huge part of that is just someone said it that Augustine is the fountainhead of so much error in the Western church that the Eastern church did not really run with him as much.
Oh no.
But the Western church gave him way too much, almost authority, in a lot of things that he taught. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's all falsehood. Like nobody's like, I mean, generally people are a mixed bag, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a consequence that he won like every other council because he goes up against a British monk, Pelagius.
Yeah.
And and Pelagius has his context that he's coming from, but he's just horrifyingly wrong. And just somehow Augustine was able to rally churches to him and win, and that became the consensus.
Well, actually, I think there's some scholars now that are studying Pelagius and Augustine and such, and I think it's among those scholars, it's kind of known that there was a bit of a straw man going on there.
Oh, it's all straw man, and especially yes, there's one scholar that has this paper called this inordinately expensive book called The Myth of Pelagianism, where she goes into the sources and shows that that Augustine did not properly represent Pelagius, and the Latin Church still refuses to actually represent his true views to this day.
Yeah, I think that we're thinking of the same woman. I can't remember her name right now, but I know what you're talking about.
Because I even got into arguments with Calvinists over Pelagius, but it's that they don't even know what they're talking about because it's beneath them to read this stuff, and it just gets repeated for 2 millennia. All this error of what Pelagius actually taught when they're actually against Celestis, who was his student, which is what Celestis believed, which was not Pelagius, but his student. And Pelagius actually condemned the beliefs that Celestis was espousing because he says, no, you're going too far, bro. That's crazy. But yet that still gets rolled in with Pelagius, and, he's been vilified ever since because Augustine's Manichaean worldview doesn't work with that.
Her name is Ali Bonner, Alibonner. I've seen her in some interviews on video. That's how I did not afford to buy her book, but she's very it was very interesting listening to her discuss that.
Yeah, because this was such an eye-opener for me when I read Romans 5:12 in Greek and I informed myself on this controversy. And oh boy.
Yeah.
Because the anthropology of original sin underlies all of Western Christianity ever since.
Yes.
Everything that as soon as Augustine touched Christianity, it would never be the same ever again. Never.
Yeah.
Until we kick Augustine, but that's not going to happen.
It sounds like we've all been kind of learning this some similar things. So, independently, because
because just reading the Eastern Orthodox take on original sin is like, oh, well, the text doesn't say that, bro. But the Latins are so insistent, like they're almost crying at the text, like it means this. It's this. Oh, the truth of scripture. It's like, bro, get the Latin out, go to the Greek,
Yeah.
and you'll see. Because the reason Augustine came to that conclusion was because he had a bad translation of Romans
Right.
5:12
Right.
in Latin.
Right.
So our and so everything downstream of that of Augustine's Latin Roman 5:12 is because of a mistranslated Latin passage in
Mhm.
so
Mm,
Yeah.
consequences.
I know it's insane to think is that
Because, yeah.
even earlier with the monarchical episcopate of Ignatius. Look how far down the road we are from that.
But
Mm.
yeah, it's one of the reasons that um, uh, in my so I have you guys have seen me talk about it. I have a theological framework set of instructions that I use when I'm dealing with these AIs in order to put them, give them some guardrails. And one of the things that I do in those instructions is I essentially tell the AI, ignore anything after 250 AD. That's the first thing. Just ignore it. And oh, by the way, if you are going to pay attention to it, use it as a foil.
Wow. It's interesting.
And it really does force the machine to draw a hard line. And there may be, and this would be a very interesting thing to do, is to look back. I mean, you mentioned Ignatius. Um, it would be interesting to rummage through the church fathers and say, okay, church fathers prior to 250 AD, is there anyone in there that I need to be also including in that foil category?
Hmm. Yeah.
Where do the distortions start? And or maybe identify the pockets of distortion so that it can really, because the idea is we're trying to get back to a as close of an understanding of first century gospel as we can. We want to understand it in that vein, and it's uh, that's been a very enlightening thing to me as an exercise.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool what you dig up, Larry.
Yeah.
I've been reading some of your posts and it's pretty fascinating.
It's interesting though too, is like sometimes when I look at things that some of those early people wrote, it occurs to me like, yes, okay, that seems consistent among, you know, multiple people and with the Bible. And then sometimes I'm just like, what? Like, where did you come up with that? And it just reminds me of like nobody has it perfect, like I think as soon as like humans started transmitting this, like
Mhm.
I thank God for the Holy Spirit, but there's some kind of um and I think it's maybe because so many people go to this effectual thing and leave, our humanity at the door and our tendency to error and free will and all of that.
Mhm.
Um, that there's some kind of just like idea that, well, the Holy Spirit will guide me into all truth. And if the Holy Spirit tells me this or that, then I'm right, and it's like when you look at everything that professing Christians have stated over time, even from the beginning, it becomes clear that I don't see anybody that's like without error. Like, there's some
No.
error in everybody's stuff. Like and to me that just assumes that like that would be a proof against Calvinism or like high Calvinism right there is like, why would God determine for every believer to include error in their beliefs about him or the Bible or that just doesn't that's not a rational kind of thought. I don't think, I'm sorry, I guess I'm really on this Calvinism tangent lately. Like it
You
just
seem to have some pent up rage
I'm seeing it for what it is, and
that bearded
also
Frenchman in
I'm
Geneva.
also out of a Lutheran like background, and I'm trying to reconcile what my family is, all still involved in, and how to communicate all the things I'm learning that in a way that is not, offensive or so I need to understand from multiple sides of things. So anyway, sidebar.
Hmm.
Full of sidebars today.
Well,
No.
guys,
Oh, here's
it's
one more
fine.
sidebar.
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Nick, thank you. Awesome. As ever, I look forward to more.
Yeah. Yeah, we got, listen, we're only like 1/3 of the way done, so we got
Mhm.
plenty more to go for.
Yeah.
And everyone else, if you want to noodle on sin for next time, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
yeah, but thanks for being in on this. Larry, do you want to stop the recording?
I will stop the recording right now. As soon as I figure out where the stop button is.